Got 2 copies of Scavenging Ooze, 4 Sylvan Caryatids for ramp, 2 Archangel of Thune, 3 Courser of Crewfix, a Blood Baron, not so great in this matchup, Hopes of that. Situation dependent, it can be good as we saw there. And then these removal spells, 2 Banishing Light, 3 Abrupt Decay, 4 Heroes Downfall, 2 Devour Flesh, small card drawing engine in Underworld Connections, and a Johnny Mentor of Heroes, and then 2 copies of Elspeth. So he does have a lot of removal to be able to interact.
I think your matchup against Mono Blue Devotion can only be so good when, you know, you're futzing around with 3 colors and expensive cards and you don't have Supreme Virtue in your deck. But there are a lot of powerful tools in Josh's list. Now
we turn our attention to the sideboard. Dalton's going to be on the play, so we'll take a look at his first.
2 copies of Mizium Skin, a Dispel, a Bident, a Claustrophobia, a Rapid Hybridization to go along with 2 in the main deck. 2 negates, a Jace Memory Adept, 2 Jace Archetype of Thought, 2 Gainsay, 2 Domestication. I don't know if I like the Planeswalker so much in this matchup because I don't know if Daniel can win even if he's drawing extra cards. Josh can just tap out for really powerful, 5 and 6 drops and invalidate the card advantage. So I think that I like just trying to be as proactive as possible. The extra Bident I think is totally fine here. I think Mizium Skin will do some good work and help against Golgari Charm and spot removal spells as well. There is a way for Daniel to take a more defensive tact or more controlling tact in the matchup by bringing in all the Planeswalkers. But since he doesn't really have a lot of the way of hard permission, he doesn't have Syncopates, he doesn't have Dissolves, he only has these Gainsays and Negates, I don't think it's very good for him to go down that road.
Take a look at the sideboard here for Grando. We got 2 copies of Nyx's Leash Ram and Underworld Connections, 2 Sin Collector, 2 DSI, 2 Lifebane Zombie, 2 copies of Golgari Charm, as you did mention, 2 Whip of Erebos, and 2 copies of BioBlight. You gotta love Blight, and you gotta love Golgari Charm as answers to Master of Waves.
Great answers to Master Waves and just kind of, stuff in general.
Yep.
Josh needs to make his deck faster to interact because if Daniel is able to get off to a fast draw, again, Josh doesn't have Supreme Virtue. He has no way to catch up. He's got to be trading 1 for 1 a bunch, and if he gets on the back foot, he may not be able to catch up, so he needs to be interacting early.
A couple copies of DSI here on the sideboard as well. Great way to interact with Thassa. Maybe not much else, but Thassa is worth killing.
Biden as well, in case that comes up.
Yeah.
Thassa's the big one.
So both players with some pretty nice options here. They will continue to shuffle up for game number 3 as we are here in Las Vegas. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, Star City Games Open Series here in Sin City at SCG Live. Hashtag SCGVEGAS. We've taken some questions. We're happy to take more on what's happening in our standard format and just what's happening on the Open Series. The big news, of course, Joe Lissette going 8-0 and being able to double draw in. He's number 3 on our leaderboard here for Season 3, but it looks like he may be moving into the lead.
He's got 4 tournaments to make something big happen, and this is a good start.
Daniel Dalton going to be on the play here for game number 3. You see a couple of islands over there. Looks like a keepable hand, something to do on turn 2, that's for sure, with Frostburn Weird. We'll see if Grando can keep up.
It looks like a hand with Weird, Thassa, some good tools.
No 1-drop, but that's A-okay, as Grando will take a draw. Gonna play an Overgrown Tomb, pass the turn back over to Dalton. And Dalton will take a draw. You mentioned Frostburn Weird, and that's where he'll start. Grando picks up a copy of Courser of Crewfix. Gonna play a Forest before passing the turn back. At the ready with an Abrupt Decay that he does slide forward in his hand. And Mutavault will come into the red zone here. Grando just gonna take 1. The follow-up here will be maybe a Thassa, and it will be.
Surprised that Grando did not use the... I guess he wants to hold on to the Abrupt Decay because of the threat of Rapid Hybridization in that spot.
Nightfall Spectre as well, I think.
Well, the Mutavault got played before combat.
Oh, sure.
So
no, you're right.
I was about to say that's off the table, but...
Oof.
Oofa.
Deicide. Gonna take down Thassas. Oh. I was gonna say Thassa, but let's make it plural and Thassas. Mizium Skin is the card that Grando is looking at very quickly, but I believe right now Daniel Dalton's hand is Mizium Skin in 2 lands.
It is done.
Apt flavor text. And it does get the job done here on Thassa. This is a card that, again, these green mid-rangey decks do not have access to, and before, Thassa was basically lights out against them.
Of course, it was one of the hardest cards to beat. And now you have a nice clean answer. Now it doesn't line up all the time. They can still just go, creature to Nightveil Spectre into Master of Waves and you have a Deicide in your hand. So it's not like there's no cost, but Daniel's hand went from beautiful to garbage.
Very quickly.
On the back of that Deicide.
Great turn there from Grando. And now Grando doesn't have to ever worry about the creatures being unblockable or a 5/5 scrying over the rest of the game. And Dalton's hand, quite poor, draws a card for the turn. It's another island. He just can fire up a Mutavault. And oh, how things have changed from one copy of Deicide.
Yeah, he would have been able to scry that land to the bottom. He would have had a Thoughts in play. I mean, it's hard to overstate how bad that was.
Courser of Krufix going to come in. Top card is a Swamp. Excuse me, top card is Banished Light. Swamp's going to come into play. Granado will gain a life before passing the turn back over to Dalton. Again, no scrying here for him. He's got to find something new, and that's another island. And now if Mutavault can't attack, all Dalton can do is pass the turn back over to Granado. Top card is a Temple of Silence. That's going to come into play. Granado will gain a life and scry as well. What a change in this game. My goodness.
And at this point, you feel like it's just a matter of Josh mopping it up.
Yeah, how's he going to clean it up at this point? He does have an Obsidian in hand. It looks like the necessary mana to cast it. So life is pretty good right now if you're Josh Granado.
The Mizium skin's a bit of complexity because of a lot of his hand is removal, but as long as Daniel keeps drawing lands like you're seeing here, shouldn't be too hard.
There's a Hero's Downfall. This will force the hand of the Mizium skin, but Granado, I think, is perfectly fine with this exchange.
Yeah, it's more about just trading this now. So if something like Nightveil Spectre, Master of Waves, something along those lines show up, you don't have to play around the Mizium skin.
Another Banishing Light revealed on the top. Got a Temple of Malady going to come into play here for Granado. He's going to gain a life. We'll see where he wants to leave the Banishing Light. Says, I'd like to keep that right there if you don't mind. And now it's time to tap 5 mana, something that Junk does very well. And this is a great 5 mana spell in Obsidian.
And it's hard to imagine now Dalton catching up from this.
I think it'll be pretty tough. That's for sure. Going to leave the Courser back on defense here. Dalton going to play a land. All you can do is pass the turn back. Just imagine a lot of these lands would have been scribed to the bottom. We might be seeing a different game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's missed how many draw steps now?
Rapid Hybridization going to take care of the Obsidian. Trigger, of course, will happen, but a Frog Lizard will come into play. So now it's time to draw a card. Banished Light will go to the grip. Top card's Manic Influence. That's an easy one to put into play. Granado up to 21. Top card there, a Godless Shrine.
And just so much removal left in his hand now.
Of course, that Frog Lizard won't be able to attack, but the Courser will. And that'll put Dalton down to 12, it looks like. And all this removal in Grando's hand, he's ready for anything, but Dalton doesn't have anything. See a Temple Garden going to get revealed. Courser making sure that only gas is coming off the top of the deck. A little bit of life gain as well. There's a copy of Golgari Charm. And now we come for 5.
And Josh with 3 clean answers to anything left over in his hand.
Yeah. It's a lot of removal, but Dalton's deck does rely on creatures to get the job done, and none of them will do now.
Yeah, in this matchup, it feels like for the Junk player, it's about what's going on in the first 3 turns of the game. And Daniel had a start here that got blown up by Abrupt Decay into Deicide and never really found anything else of note.
Master of Waves comes down, but it'll have no effect. The Hero's Downfall will take care of that. Rando reveals a Courser of Krufix. There's a Godless Shrine. Time to tick that up. In for 5. We're going to go again. Dalton may block here with a Mutavault, but this is a waving of the white flag, it feels.
Yeah, Josh is still producing lethal next turn and has answers to any possible follow-up here from Daniel.
Daniel will draw a card. He's going to play a Mutavault, so I think we'll play one more turn. Because there's a Courser. Sylvan Caryatid on the top of the deck. Here's 3 mana. Courser going to come in right now. Good sequencing. Even though the game is very much in Grando's favor, you still have to make sure you make the right plays at all stages of the game.
The point is to strive for perfection.
Yep.
Even the spots where you're ahead.
Dalton goes down to 3. Now Dalton's got one more draw coming, and he's going to concede this game. Josh Grando's going to win this match over Daniel Dalton. 2-1. Junk mid-range with a timely Deicide, taking down Mono Blue Devotion.
Abrupt Decay into Deicide, and Daniel never had a follow-up of note. And even if he did, Josh ended that game with multiple copies of Banishing Light left over in his hand. Daniel flooded out quite badly that game, of course, but even if he drew well, I think Josh had the tools to get it done.
Made it look pretty easy, and it looks like we may have a Junk deck in the top 8 now as well.
It looks very likely. Again, we are right on the cusp of 10 rounds. We barely got there.
Yep.
So X1 with a draw probably should be good, but again, it's hard to say without seeing the standings.
Yeah, we will find out here, of course, when we